It is the Anfield Wrap. Neil Atkinson, John Gibbons, Josh Sexton, the Liverpool Echoes, James Pearce, and Rob Gutmann, who doesn't belong to any newspaper outlet that I know of, but it wouldn't surprise me if he's got some sort of checkered history in the Kent Evening Times. We will push forward to talk about Swansea versus Liverpool in... we'll do it straight away, actually, because it's written down here that I'm going to go straight away into this. And James, if I say it was the quintessential game of two halves, I think it'd be slightly inaccurate because Liverpool were the growing force just before the break. You felt as though when the half-time whistle goes, it was one of them really where you didn't quite want the half-time whistle, then you felt as though if the half had 5 more minutes, Liverpool would have got in level. But that said, for 25 minutes to half an hour, Liverpool were very much second best. Yeah,
I think... I was sat there with Neil Jones, kind of racking our brains trying to think of when was the last half an hour under Klopp that was as bad as that, the opening half hour. And it almost reminded you of Watford or West Ham or Newcastle last season, because it just seemed to be like just a kind of a panic that kind of... It was sloppy from the start, and then it seemed to spread like wildfire through the entire team. And or even someone like Joel Matip, who's looked so calm and composed, suddenly unable to pass the ball 10 yards sideways to Klein and be all right. You just felt that in the 10 minutes before half time, they just finally started to settle. And and I think the other thing was Swansea put so much into that open half hour, which credit to them, they completely bossed it. But I think even at half time, you were thinking they can't sustain that.
This is quite interesting watching this side develop, Josh, because it is noticeable that you feel as though Swansea have got to basically put a half's worth of football into half an hour to dominate this Liverpool side. Even if it's playing badly, that's now the physical level you've got to go at. And I thought that was a really noticeable thing, was that they were... You could see them dropping deeper, dropping off. In that, just by about 40 minutes, you thought they've gone here, and I think that tells you where sort of what sides feel as though they've got to do to compete with this Liverpool team. So even though they were on top, in many ways, it's a compliment to what we've seen so far from Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool this season.
Yeah, I think it was. I think Swansea just came out the traps, and that's probably what you need to do against us. You need to rattle us early on. I think the difference between the Swansea game and the Burnley game, which is of course our sort of black mark on our copybook for the season, is that Burnley got their 2 goals. I felt quite confident throughout the sort of time where they had 1 goal. I know they had a couple of chances, but I sort of felt confident if we keep this at 1 goal, then I think we'll come back, and then it transpires that we did. But yeah, I was really pleased with the performance, just in the sense that I feel like we needed one of them sort of wins, like your 5-0s and your 4-1s and that sort of thing. They're perfect, but you sort of need to see that your team can dig deep and get a gritty win like that.
I think it's something that we've got to get used to as well, John, this season. I think we're going to see a fair few sides do what Swansea tried to do and try to turn it into, almost take the game away from Liverpool in that first half an hour, look to disrupt. I think it is going to happen, and maybe we need to be slightly more resilient when it isn't quite going our way, when they are on top, as was the case in the first 15, 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be times against a lot of opposition in the Premier League where they are on top, especially away from home, and you do have to deal with it. You do have to weather the storm a little bit. How much of that Liverpool can do at the moment, we're not quite sure, because to be fair, in most games you've been very much on top. Even if games like Burnley, where we didn't create a lot, we still had 80% of the ball or whatever it was, and so you're not seeing huge amounts of pressure on the defence. And we've got to remember, it still is a bit of a makeshift defence. I mean, Matip and Lovren are a very new partnership, and then you're going to throw in a new goalkeeper behind them as well, a guy who's doing very well at left back, but still pretty much learning the ropes of his position and things like that. And so it is very much a makeshift back four. And there's no way around most of that, although he's obviously made a decision on the keeper. But I think they need to grow quickly, because I think teams are going to... The better the Liverpool do, and the more results come, people are going to be saying, well, how is it you can't get a result against them? Some teams at Anfield maybe will go, we'll just write it off and worry about the next game. But at home, teams aren't going to be doing that. So they'll be looking at little things like what Burnley have done and the success that Swansea had, and maybe crosses into the box and things like that, and say, well, this is something you can do. Wait for set pieces. We don't want a situation like we got into last season at one point where people are thinking, just wait to get a set piece against Liverpool and you score there, and it doesn't really kind of matter what you do, and that's sort of creeping it back in a little bit with our defence, which is a little bit worrying.
It's being rattled as well, Rob. I think that's the other thing that I think you've got to... it isn't as basic and as unscientific as just get into them and see, because that wasn't what Swansea did. It was, they picked the moments to rattle Liverpool. It wasn't the idea that we'll just run loads and kick them. It was like, we'll be patient in this area of the pitch and we'll hound them to death in this area of the pitch. We'll let them feel as though they can relax there, and then Jack Cork sprinting 40 yards to close people down over here. Do you know what I mean? It felt like it was a forensic bit of get into them, if you know what I mean. Rattle them, make their lives very, very difficult, never let them settle. And as I say, I don't think the Swanseas of the world can necessarily sustain that for more than half an hour. But sometimes half an hour is all you need in a football match. Liverpool have got to work it out soon.
Yeah, there's two ways you can look at it. I do remember distinctly when Liverpool, and I always hark back to this because we want Liverpool to get back to the stage where they were very, very good for a number of years, and that happened to be my youth in the 80s. Where Liverpool would have a bad half is because Liverpool were very fit and pressed in those days. They were ahead of their time in many respects, the sophistication of the press then. But the teams that came to rattle Liverpool, you'd often see even in a cup game at Anfield, a minnow would come and they'd have an incredible first half hour. But we got used to a kind of narrative that would unroll, which would be that they will blow themselves out. Now, as long as this Liverpool kind of get themselves into a system that they can deal with this. It's basically an intense press, what Swansea did. It wasn't hapless, as you say. It wasn't shapeless. It had a strategy. It
wasn't boot them either.
But it also wasn't that sophisticated. It relied on them getting that goal. I think it relied on them getting 2 goals. And I wonder how we'd have coped had that. I think there's a header, is it Cork has or someone has?
Borgia,
And you think at 2-0, I don't care. They can say, well, we're happy to blow ourselves out. We'll just wait and pick you off. I mean, Newcastle sort of did that to us last year away from home. They get their goal, they blow themselves out, they wait, and then Wijnaldum scored for Newcastle near the end last year, I think. So this is what we're going to have to deal with. I mean, sometimes I notice Liverpool sort of in the golden age, the way they deal with it is we would go, you know how we like to come out strong? We're going to come out strong plus, almost risk our own blowout so that they don't get that. And that's something Klopp's going to have to work on. It is worrying, on the other hand, that this is now a category of game where we don't look as good as we look in much harder on paper fixtures. It's consistently Burnley and Swansea, as you say, John. Yeah. There's not light years between these two games in some respects, and then we can pick a catalogue of games from last season. So
I was more confident watching us this time. I don't know whether that's because we've seen more football, but I was more confident watching us than Burnley. But I don't know. I wonder whether they might be looking at the preparation into these games and say, well, what is it we're doing in the build-up, which means we're not starting as strongly as we like. I mean, the best away performance this season was Chelsea, where they presumably travelled down on the day, and these other ones that maybe a bit earlier, we haven't started great, and so maybe something that they want to look at as a football club. I know it's something that Cortese was really big on at Southampton, was the little things that you can do to make sure that the players feel at home as possible, and making sure that they were taking their own mattresses and all sorts by one point, and you just kind of wonder. I mean, presumably for Swansea they didn't travel down on the day, and if they did, then that's a bit of concern. But just looking into, I'm sure they are looking into it, and I haven't got the answers because I don't know what they're doing. But as a football club, are we preparing as well as we could do? Are the players feeling as comfortable as possible so they feel like they can go onto the pitch and start added intensity, because it doesn't feel like they are at the moment. Maybe they're just still sort of getting used to themselves and the surroundings, and finding ourselves 1-0 down. There's
something in that as well in terms of James, the way in which Swansea were able to find holes, and that's what that they were able to make Liverpool. The manager says afterwards he couldn't believe how compact we weren't in that early period, and we're communicating sort of across the team in terms of where everyone needs to be and what everyone's responsibilities are in those intense starts, because it is worth pointing out as well, in a game like this one, where the other thing that happens obviously is Swansea's crowd's up, so it's this idea of, lads, can we just get compact here for 5? Someone up, bringing them in, and you get the impression all the time Henderson's looking to do that, but maybe another couple of them. I felt until he moved into midfield, Coutinho's practically anonymous in the football match. He couldn't get into it at all. But it's that they could find those holes. It wasn't just like Burnley where they were sitting in. It's the idea, you're watching Jack Cork running off the back of both Wijnaldum and Lallana while Lallana's on the pitch, and no one's anywhere near him. And Swansea knew what they were doing. They knew where the holes would be. They clearly had thought, this is how we target these lads.
Yeah, they did. I think, and it was luck, wasn't it? That Liverpool were only 1-0 down after half an hour. I think a better team would have taken those other couple of chances they had, and the game could have been out of sight. And I think you're right. That was the worrying thing, was just how easy Swansea found it to get in behind Liverpool and to create opportunities. I think Klopp said something interesting, and he did like a separate Monday newspaper briefing after the game, and he said he couldn't believe how good training was on Wednesday and Thursday in the week. And he said 22, 23 players absolutely bang on it. And he said, and that worried me slightly because I want them to be at their peak on Saturday, not on Wednesday or Thursday. And so I think maybe he sensed that that maybe they weren't quite on it, even before a ball had been kicked.
Come back to on that, James. Is it worth sort of pointing out that we know enough? John says there's lots of things we don't know, but we know that, for instance, football teams, and certainly at this stage of the season, the manager goes, right, this is a batch of 5 games. The challenge in these 5 games, probably to a certain extent, is you want to win all 5, but you probably accept 4 wins and then and something in the other one. Yeah. Liverpool got to the point where they got the 4 out of 4, and almost that, as you say, the challenge is almost trying to keep them at the right pitch. Not the idea, because the right pitch can't be absolutely on the ceiling all the time. It's getting them into the right, and that must be that's a fresh challenge for the manager, if you know what I mean, because he's not had a run of form as strong as this one. So that does give him a whole new set of problems in terms of, and the good problems are the problems you want, but in terms of understanding how to get these lads precisely where you want them at the right time. So it's interesting he mentions that. Yeah, and I think he touched upon it, I think, in the build-up to the game as well, and we asked him, how do you try and maintain those standards and that have been set in the last few weeks, and he said it's not easy because there isn't a winning mentality here. He said you look through the squad, there isn't actually that many players who are used to consistently delivering at the top end of the table. He said, I know a bit about it myself, maybe not in the last year, but prior to that. So I think he almost said he's trying to change the mindset of a group that doesn't think, do you know what, we've had a good few weeks here. We can maybe ease off a bit here because, Swansea, look where they are. Or get carried away and start to be absolutely revving. I always remember the old stories that, for instance, Paco Ayestran used to say about Steven Gerrard being much more wound up than, for instance, a player like than a player like Luis Garcia. That you get yourself too revved up, unable to sleep, not quite relaxed. All that sort of stuff. It is when you think about where you want your elite sportsmen to be and where you want them to be for sort of 8 months. It is actually quite a difficult balancing act. They've got to be able to get right up, but they've also got to be able to come back down that journey. Yeah, and I think that's the big challenge facing Klopp, isn't it? And I think he knows that as well, trying to keep them at that level and ensuring that they're ready for every test that comes their way. The second half then, Josh, Liverpool much the better side, and certainly much the better side from 45 to 70. They played some terrific football, I felt. I thought there was a little patch in there where I'd say Liverpool might have had the best 10 minutes of the season, and that includes the performance against Arsenal, where they were just pulling Swansea all over the place. But to go back to the mental aspect of that, then it suggests it was a big half time for the manager, a big half time for the 2 or 3 lads you'd probably consider in there to be the senior pros. You arguably see a bit of that in Henderson's reaction to the equaliser. There's a lot of now we really turn it up, now we go. And again, sort of getting those footballers to be that intense and to keep going at that level is it's impressive. They shouldn't have to necessarily need to play at that pitch to beat Swansea, but they were able to reach it after the disappointing first half.
Yeah, definitely. I think at that point you need your big characters to sort of pull through. You need your Coutinhos and Firminos to step up on what they showed in the first half, which wasn't very much. I mean, at half-time, 1-0 probably flattered us based on the first half an hour, but then by the end 2-1 definitely flattered Swansea, and then that late chance shouldn't even really be giving them a chance to get back into the game. But yeah, like I said, your Firminos and your Coutinhos, there's almost a reliance on them to come back out and pull you through the game in that sense.
Coutinho's interesting in this context, Rob, because I think we can probably list a number of games since Jurgen Klopp's come in, but before then, where you've seen Coutinho be anonymous, as I said before, and then he isn't, but it's punctuated with a goal. It's punctuated with a fabulous piece of skill. It's, for instance, when you were probably saying to him, Chelsea away last season, you're probably saying you could hook Coutinho at half-time here. Oh, he's just equalised. Arsenal.
That kickstarts him.
Kickstarts him. My point here is that this was probably the first Coutinho performance where it isn't a goal that kickstarts him. He just simply comes out second half and decides to be the best player on the pitch. Yeah. And it's a marked difference. It's not the idea of, oh, look, Coutinho's just done something brilliant, so he was in the game all along. United away, for instance, is another good one coming up to half-time. It is instead this idea that he comes out second half and basically wins the ball back about 1 billion times, is screaming at people, give me the ball, get me on the ball. They're just getting him on the ball. He's turning away from men. You know, it was a proper performance in that it wasn't the idea that he's had the adrenaline boost of something remarkable.
Yeah, a different role for him. A role he hasn't played since 2013-14. And he wasn't even as if he was getting shots off. Well, he actually does get one shot off where you think that should be the moment where he
just wait for the net to go, aren't you?
That was a goal as far as I was next to you, virtually, John, was right behind it. What a beautiful stun set up by Wijnaldum, and you think it's a goal. But you know, he was. I've watched it back the entire second half. I couldn't be doing with the first half again. I watched the second half.
You look on the bright side of life, don't you, Rob?
Yeah,
your bread's always buttered.
I didn't even see this good 10-minute spell you're talking about before half time. Me and John were down getting an ale, I think. It
was on the telly.
It was on the telly. Yeah, I think so.
Don't knock the myth of analysis here, lads.
But that second half, what were the things I can say? Yeah, he was brilliant. Yeah, I can confirm Coutinho was at the heart of absolutely everything that second half. He was stunning. I mean, he was pulling us together. I mean, lots of us have wanted to see him in that role, and whether there's serendipity in Lallana getting that injury or not, I wouldn't want to say, because Lallana's been sensational this season. But it's good. It's a good position to have. But you definitely have Coutinho there.
John, it was that second half when Liverpool do kick into life, as I said before. If there's a criticism there, and by all means we can make them, we're allowed now. We won for one, and it's interesting the manager's making them. I'll come on to that in a minute. But there is still a line here that Liverpool just need to be that bit more ruthless. Josh says before, it should, whilst we're lucky probably to get in at 1-0, we probably should be 3-1, 4-1. That last chance shouldn't matter. Swansea shouldn't feel as though throwing the kitchen sink's going to make any odds. Liverpool should have found a way to take the game away from them. Yeah,
there was a couple of times when it was just seemed to be the decision or just quite the final ball. There's the one that James Milner wins brilliantly, and he don't have a go at him because he's winning that ball right up the pitch, and then he just looks up and I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on Sturridge because it doesn't look like he can quite get it to him, although Daniel Sturridge very much disagreed.
The lad takes a great position.
Yeah.
The lad takes a great position.
It's the ball, so he hits Mane, and the ball's behind Mane, isn't he? And he has to take a touch to get it into his feet, and then by that time the guy's got in a good position to block, and it's just a little bit frustrating, that one. And then I think there was one down the right hand side as well, and maybe it was Ronaldo, and it's just a bit too close to the keeper, and you think it's a really good position. I mean, you've just got to do kind of a little bit better than that. And also with 2-1, let's be honest, we had some great opportunities on the break in terms of what we should be doing, and just sort of bad decision making really. And I don't know whether we weren't quite sure whether we should be, you know, getting to the corner or scoring a goal, and they kind of ended up doing a bit of nothing. There's the pretty rubbish almost pass back from Origi, isn't there? And so it's I think it's maybe a 2-1 was that kind of 10 minutes after that was the most frustrating I got, really, kind of watching them after the kind of half hour mark, really, because I just feel like they could have really put it to bed there. There was an opportunity where, you know, they look like, you know, 3-on-3 opportunities against a tiring defence with lads who come on, and just kind of couldn't quite make it work. There was an Emre Can one as well, wasn't there?
The 2-1 it was a strange result. Once you got over the euphoria of actually having come out with the points, not believing it could happen at half time in a way, it was, I think in any other season I'd still been on a high that we actually had that comeback in us, and that it was another win on the board. But we're trying to walk the walk of champions at the moment. Let's be right. That's what we want to happen. You know, even the bookies are believing in us as serious title contenders. We've seen City are far from impregnable. I think the walk of champions are likely to quickly rattled in a late 1 or 2 more. Maybe 2's being a bit greedy. Just to have walked out of there going 3-1. Do you know what? We started crap, but when we blow a team away, we blow a team away. And actually, we're watching about the quality of performances there that we kind of did.
It warrants it.
It warranted it, yeah. It meant I didn't sleep as well as I'd like to have slept.
I think it's part of the timing of the goal, James, to be fair to the players. I think when John's saying before, you know, it's the old liners, they don't know whether or not to stick or twist. There's an element to that on a couple of those counters, and also there's likely to have been a fair bit of legs have gone into the 40 minutes of the half that's preceded it. But when they do go 2-1, you do sort of get the impression there is a thing there where they're a bit like, you know what, there's only 10 to go. We just get to get out the other side of this now, and it maybe if that penalty is 65, 67. What Rob's talking about, to see it, I think it becomes a little bit, and it's interesting he makes the change straight away off the back of it as well. Maybe he was hoping there that, you know, they can counter a little bit better and do a little bit more.
Should have done. I think Coutinho had a big chance, didn't he? I think just after the second one had gone in, and It should have been more comfortable. I think it was just more in keeping with the whole day, though. It was just a struggle. I think it was a struggle when Liverpool were way off the pace, and it was almost a struggle trying to turn that dominance into goals when they were on top. And and obviously if Swansea hadn't missed that late sitter, it could easily have finished 2-2.
It would have felt utterly deflating. I think that's the thing. I mean, normally I'm like, if they missed, they missed, but that would have it would have killed me.
Yeah, and I think
I had a big Saturday.
Yeah, and I felt there was something quite satisfying in thinking. I actually felt afterwards, actually on the balance, probably a little bit lucky to have won that game, having been so poor to start with and not been ruthless enough when they were on top.
I think there's something interesting in this. I'll go Josh first on this and then back to James before we begin to look at the players individually. But what I think is interesting is the manager takes the opportunity of the performance and after the game. If I say slaughter them, it overstates it. You get the impression as a dressing room and behind that manager, they're very, very together. But he'll never name names, the manager. He rarely names names about players in a positive sense, Josh. But he's making it very clear, and you suspect he's made it very clear in the dressing room there that Liverpool have got to play better. And if you look at every single one of these wins, even the 5-1 against Hull, he goes out of his way to say how unhappy he was with the second half performance, that he wants this Liverpool side to be as close to his perfect view of a Liverpool side as possible, and he's not going to rest on his laurels, and it's good to do that after the win. Yeah, it is.
I think on TV they spoke to James Milner after the game, and they sort of said, what was the manager like at half time? And he was quite honest about it. He said he was angry as you would be, and I think it needed that. I think there was a couple of players who just need that sort of rocket up the backside to come back out for the second half and then put in the bigger performance, which is what saw us through in the end. So I think his anger was definitely warranted. I admired his honesty as well. The fact that he came out and said, look, I wasn't happy with these lads, but they've showed me that I can be happy in the end with the 3 points. So it was the result that mattered in the end.
I'm intrigued by this, James, and you spend more time with him than anyone here, but I think that there is an honesty about what he does. But I think simultaneously, he's not playing games, but what he is he's quite prepared to say, he's not going to simply go, we beat Hull 5-1, everything's great. He's not going to say, I'm made up just to get the. And I feel a bit. I think he'd do the opposite. So, for instance, if they'd have drawn the game, late equaliser, he'd have talked up that second half performance. I think that, for instance, people have been criticising Mourinho after the Stoke game, where Mourinho can't kick it in the goal for them. They've missed 6 sitters, United, and he's gone out of his way to say our best performance of the season. And I think it's something that you see from managers. It's always, Rodgers used to do it. When Liverpool on that great run in 13-14, it's easy to say we can be better when you've just won.
Yeah,
and he's gone out of his way to do that so far this season, Liverpool manager.
He has, and I think because he often, whenever he refers to the Burnley defeat, he always says how well Liverpool played that day.
Exactly,
and I don't agree with him. I just think
nonsense.
How is that possibly a good performance when the keeper has won? I think Grujic was the first person to force a save out the keeper after 80 odd minutes in that game. Liverpool were terrible at Burnley, but he won't have it. He'll say that was a great performance, blah blah, because he's not going to criticise the players after defeat. You're right. He feels the time to do it is when they've won, and in a funny kind of way, Saturday probably. He can almost say, I told you so to the players, because when he said to them after Hull, you can do so much better than that, and they're probably thinking, hang on a minute, we've just absolutely battered them. What do you mean we can do much better than that? But, and I think after Saturday, any player would know that performance was a long way short of what they're capable of. It's
back to the idea as well, Rob, that he's managing, and again, he's talking like he just wants the points, and then all of a sudden Liverpool just get the points, and he says something completely contradictory in terms of I just want the points. But it's back to the fact that he's managing a process, and I think that's the most interesting thing about not just Liverpool this season. I think about Spurs and City, to me, look like they're managing a process. It's the way Guardiola talks, that make the players better, get the players all into good habits, all doing what I want them to do, and all doing it for 90 minutes, that there's no hiding places. You feel as though that's still, things might be different come March and April if Liverpool are at the business end of this, and it might very much become, we're no longer managing a process, lads, we're just getting over lines over and over again. But right now, after Hull, after Leicester, and now after this game against Swansea, and you can even throw Derby County in there as well, when we're all tops off, the manager's managing a process. I need you to be in good habits for the full 90, boys. This is what you've got to do.
Yes, I suppose it's the stage in the season we're at, isn't it? It's always at this stage still part of an extended pre-season in a way. You're still preparing yourself for the whole gamut of challenges that are going to face you. After Hull and after sort of even in a way Jurgen being on Monday Night Football, there's a sense of triumphalism around the club that we've planted our flag, we are ready to challenge for the title. The media have bought into it, fans have bought into it, we were all buying into it. Swansea was a classic banana skin, I suppose. And part of the process was, this needs navigating this one. We need this one getting out of the way. We're going into international break. We don't fall on this hurdle. That's the biggest positive that I think comes out of this week, everybody. We don't fall here. That was the thing. Even at half-time, I think we were all a bit heartbroken. We felt very deflated. I think there was still a sense, I think we talked, John, about this is different. This is different. If we are champions, we do this. We come back here. This is part of the process of this season. Is that there will be days like this. We will deal with this, and that's not to reiterate the cliche that is you got to win when you play badly. You got to find a way to play well again. Is what you got to do in a football match.
That's very sensible. I like that. You've got to find a way to... I've never liked the cliche of win when play badly. It's right. You know, you've got to find a way to play well for 10 minutes and have it make all the difference. Or
it's not necessarily win when we play badly. It's kind of win when, you know, everything's flying. And the worry about this Liverpool team has been a little bit that, you know, when everything's great, they look brilliant, but when it's not, what are they like at kind of 70-80%? And that's not necessarily badly. That's, you know, kind of just off, or it's not quite happening for you, or it's not at a million miles an hour. And I think that was more the performance of that, really. And I just enjoyed this kind of sense of inevitability in the second half that the Swansea fans must have been thinking. And it sort of started thinking about, I wonder what the other fans are thinking watching this. And I was doing that in the Swansea game, and I thought they must think this team's a nuisance. You know, when they were really going, and it was just wave after wave after wave, there must have been kind of an air of resignation that it was going to happen. And then obviously then there's the period where that goes away for a little bit between 70 and 80, and we do get the penalty. But you know, the Swansea fans must have felt when I was watching Manchester United in the late 90s, and you watch them on telly and they go 1-0 down away, and you'd be brilliant. This is it. They're going to get beat now. And then second half, something comes from somewhere and they get a rollicking, and then it's just wave after wave, and you're just watching it like it's a car crash falling in front of your eyes, because you know what's going to happen. You know, the bad thing from a Liverpool fan's point of view. And I think if we can get that, you know, we're not quite there. You know what I mean? It wasn't a perfect second half performance, but I did enjoy watching it in terms of just. You know, 1-0. There's only one team who I felt like was going to win it, and that was us, and that's a nice feeling to have as a football fan. You still need to get the goal, you still need to get the winning, but you know, but having that feeling that we've got that is a positive thing.
There's Victoria's confirmation bias on this, and I would say that the only time when I've watched it back, and when I watched it live, the only time I was concerned, Josh, we weren't going to win was between 70 and 80. Before, even first half, when we were getting a bit lucky and they weren't taking the chances, like you said before, I was thinking, you know, if we get in 1-0 in worst case 1-0, we'll win the game. And I was thinking that, and it got to 70 and it got to 75, and when I was watching it live, I was thinking, the momentum's gone here. For the first time, I began to think, you know what, this could end up just being a point. I never thought we were under threat, but I always thought this could be a point. When I watched it back, John mentions that United side there, but name any good side. You know, the 10 years ago's Mourinho's side. You know, a couple, 3 or 4 years back's Man City. I actually thought we've controlled ourselves into a breather. We took a little breather, and now when I watch it back, and it could be Victoria's confirmation bias and all this sort of stuff, but there was almost a certainty of we just need to just calm down, and then we'll pull all of our resources together and it will come. And I don't know what you thought when you were sort of reviewing the game and all that sort of stuff, but that's what I thought now. I think it's interesting that there was still that sense of inevitability. It just became a little different.
That was the most impressive thing for me was the sort of patience that we exercised throughout the game. Whereas Burnley, we go 2-0 down and there's a lot of lads who just lose their head, and then you got Coutinho trying to blam it in from all over the place. The difference this time is, look lads, we're going to get an opportunity, and when it comes, we've got to take it. And then luckily the opportunity was Angel Rangel flying through Firmino. God knows why he's doing that about 10 minutes from time. By the way, I'd be fuming if I was a Swansea fan with that, but. Yeah, I think the patience was just the key difference this time, was the fact that we sort of played our way through the game, played how we normally play, and then we knew that when the opportunity was going to come, we were going to be able to take it, and luckily it came to Mr. Reliable James Milner.
We'll come on to Milner in a second. We'll come on to other players one at a time. One more thing before, just to having become very, very positive, to arc back towards the negative, James, is that there's two things that you're going to do, and it was hinted at before by John. There's two things you're going to do against this Liverpool side. One of them is going to try and put them under pressure first half an hour and look to have the big half an hour. The other thing is you're going to say set pieces. You can get something from a set piece, and the manager, you know, he makes a joke about it to a certain extent on Monday Night Football, and I do always feel that if you're a good side, well, of course, the opponents are going to target you at set pieces because it's their best chance in many senses. But we're not half encouraging them, and I think that's what's got to stop soon. It's not just the idea of you're going to concede one or two here and there, but even the ones we're not conceding, there's a ropiness about it, which is just giving everyone encouragement.
It is, yeah. I think I was looking back at the numbers. I think that's 16 goals conceded from set pieces under Klopp, and obviously it was a problem that preceded his arrival. It's not just been since he came in, but yeah, it is an issue because it's just giving away soft goals, isn't it? And it's just and that's a vulnerability that teams prey on because they know there is such a weakness there. I think it doesn't help at the moment having there's not that understanding between the goalkeeper and the defenders in front of him. Obviously, he's new, he's still settling in, adjusting to his new surroundings. But it wasn't even one header, was it? On Saturday, it was it's a header at the back post, and then two Swansea players are quicker and more alert to it. So I think it was Van der Hoorn who knocked it on, and Ferrer obviously touched it in. So yeah, just that that lack of awareness. I think it was the same with the goal the week before against Hull, wasn't it? And Klopp kind of pointed out himself that too many people staring at the ball and not enough people aware of the danger around them.
There's something in this, John, where what worries me about it is that it undermines you tactically. It means that you're playing the game and you're thinking twice about putting it out for a corner. You're thinking twice about taking the cheap foul in a certain area because you're worried you're being broken on. And I've seen it happen. James mentions there. It's not just from Klopp. It's also proceeding with Brendan Rodgers. That sense of everyone's looking at each other now and going, "Oh no, they've got this." Whereas inside, no matter how many goals you concede as a side, you don't want to have the mentality of everyone looking at each other going, "Oh no, they've got a free kick, they've got a corner." You need to be able to go, "It's just a free kick. It's just a corner."
Yeah, definitely. I think the free kicks you can certainly start playing on the mind, and then you're just kind of scared to make a challenge. I remember one time under Rodgers, that mad QPR game where we actually end up winning, but we make a really, really good job of not doing so. And there's one point where they get a free kick 50 yards out, I think, and then it gets pumped into the box and they score from it, and that's the equaliser, and everyone's ends up moaning at the guy who gives the free kick away.
It happened to Milner last season against Southampton when he gave a free kick practically on the halfway line away. Yeah. They scored from it, and everyone was saying afterwards, people were on me on social media going, criticism for Milner there, he's giving it that free kick away. Yeah. If you're James Milner, you played for proper football teams, and you're thinking to yourself, it's a free kick 40 yards from goal, lads, we just deal with it. Yeah.
So but it must start getting into the mindset, and if you're a team that wants to press, and if you're a team that wants to be aggressive, and you've got someone like Jordan Henderson who's top of the tackles chart, second in the tackles chart, and things like that, every now and again you're going to mistime something, or the ref's going to give you one that's maybe a bit unfair, and so you're going to give free kicks away. And so we need to find a way to deal with them better, because you don't want, as you said, it's starting to get into the mindset of the players that they're not sure about whether they can play in a certain way anymore, because playing in this way is one of our strengths.
You've got to be able, if you're going to commit the way we commit forward, where effectively, and the manager said it himself, you're almost playing 2-1-7 at times. You've got to be able to give a foul away. You've got to be able to have someone just clip someone's heels. You've got to be able to, and ideally get away with it without a yellow card. You've got to be able to do that. So therefore, yes, there's certain areas on the pitch, and we all know what the parabola of the ball coming in looks like. We all know what the arc is, the trajectory of these things. There's certain bits of the pitch where you don't want to give them away. I always remember that we used to give nightmare ones away under Benitez and Derby with Cahill and Arteta about to arc one in. No matter how good you are, you never want to defend them.
No.
But 35 yards from your goal, you've got to be able to be thinking, I can just clip this lad in, it's all going to be all right. Yeah,
I mean, I was right behind, in line with the goal. Dejan Lovren comes across and takes touch, doesn't he? He takes touch, and I sort of, at the time, I was on the telly, actually. It's the right decision. It's a good piece of defending. But at the time I was close. I thought, did you really need to do that, Dejan? Have a little whinge and everything. You know what's going to happen? You could have taken another touch, in which case somebody could have nicked it off him and been clear on goal. But it affects me as a supporter. Mindset is, don't be putting it into touch. Don't be challenging there. I also think there's a psychological fragility that when the ball comes in, I think they're all terrified of what that first ball is going to represent, because that's the thing that defines whether this is going to be a set piece that hurts you or not. First ball comes in, your man heads it away at the near post, everyone breathes a massive sigh of release and we're up and running. But that first ball goes over all their heads, and I think they immediately start to shit themselves. Jordan Henderson loses it and just abandons his position, goes forward 6 yards, and I think somebody else as well. who picked it up on? Shearer picks this up on Match of the Day, doesn't he? That Henderson just. Why does he do that? I mean, he's a reliable defender. He's had a brilliant game otherwise, but I think that I'm not blaming him in isolation for Liverpool's set piece malaise, but it's symptomatic, I think, of the mentality of why we're not dealing with second balls. I think our heads go. If the first ball's right, I think our heads go, and we're not playing the second ball.
Okay then, move towards the back to front in a second. A lot of people we think are listening to us talk on this show for the first time, or for the first time in a while. So hello, it's nice of you to come and speak to us. Listen to us speak to you. It's always nice to have new people, isn't it, John?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, we're very much about
all
that.
These James Pearce fans tuning in.
There's those as well, yes.
All three of them.
Lovely that anyone who's joined us
New
as well
demographic.
For that purpose. Just want to mention that you might not know, you might know, and you might not care, but we have a subscription service on Tour Player where, for instance, we have a show up within half an hour or an hour of the final whistle on every Liverpool game. We've also got on there a tactical analysis show, which we'll be recording later on today. We've got shows looking back historically. We've got a preview show that we do before every single Liverpool game, which looks at the whole Premier League weekend, and we also mess about and tell daft jokes as well, so you can get all that if you want to pay £5 a month. It's the AnfieldWrap.com /subscribe for that. And also if you like this sort of thing, there's also our Facebook, our Snapchat, which is arcing better and better as the days go by, due to the hard work of Gareth Roberts. The Anfield Wrap on Snapchat, all one word. And there's an Instagram as well, and we like Instagram, we like all these things. Come and find us, and there's more and more of this sort of stuff. Alright then, the back to front is we'll start with the goalkeeper. It may be mildly contentious, Josh, but I think it's worth saying I'd like to think that if he's looking at his performance, he's not giving it more than 5 out of 10.
No, I think he sort of flagged up a lot of problems which Mignolet usually gets slaughtered for, and I think that was a lot of people's problem over the weekend, was how do we sort of react to this, because we've had almost years, it feels like, of Mignolet making a mistake and everybody slaughtering him, and then we've got this new guy coming in who basically everyone's saying is going to be the saviour, he's the answer to all of our problems, and actually he's caused the same problems in this one game specifically, and it is just this one game. He's shown in the few games that he has played that maybe there's a bit of uncertainty there, but in this game it all came to the fore in a sense, not dramatically so because we won the game still, but yeah, he was causing the same problems that Mignolet does, and a lot of people just decided that was the thing. But for the next game, I'd definitely say that you keep him in, because he's a young lad, and you've got to manage that confidence. If you say to him, well, we've got United next, probably one of our bigger games of the season, but sorry, we don't trust you enough to play, then he's going to be sat there thinking, oh, well, great, well, where do I get back in now then?
I think it's a funny one in that, it's important to say, and Josh has pointed it out there, Rob, that the manager's managing not just for one game. I'm sure if we knew that the world was going to end after United, as a complete one-off, you can make the Mignolet case, but there's a manager here who's got to manage the personalities. It's almost in a sense not fair on Mignolet in terms of what he's lashed back in for United, and then he thinks, well, if I make the slightest error, he's going to go and swap it again. There's lots and lots of aspects to this. I think if it was a complete one-off, you could make the argument perhaps that you'd say, well, we know that they're going to try and target and do an X and Y. We've seen Mignolet come off his line well this season at times and look to come to punch stuff in the air, and Karius has maybe lacked a little bit of that, but without sort of framing it around what you do for the next game, it is worth saying that I think we would all have liked a little bit more, but then it's his first tough Premier League away game. The Hardies, I remember Rayner struggling at Bolton.
Yeah, they are. I can go back to Bruce Grobbelaar's first nightmare 5 months, where we looked the worst keeper we could ever conceive of having, and then became the best keeper we've ever had, arguably. It is very different. Look, Klopp has shown us that Karius is his chosen one. Although he's spoken this talk of there being an even fight, I've got 2 first choices, everything on merit. The minute he had the chance to get Karius in, he got him in and he's kept him in. So he's researched the guy, he's scouted him, he's invested in him emotionally and as a coach. He's got to be in his own mind going, I don't care what he does, he's in for the next 10 games. And I think as supporters, we've got to go with that and back that. Yes, we think we can spot a keeper's style from the word go. He looked a bit of a liner at times, didn't he? He wasn't flying out for things. In the past couple of games when he has come, he's not been entirely convincing when he's done it. And we've not really seen him as a shot stopper in any way whatsoever. We've seen him with the ball at his feet, and I actually think he's been comfortable. One bad kick out aside. But he's had the confidence to be booting it long when it's required. So I'm looking for positives, I'm ticking boxes on that. Yeah, 5 out of 10 is exactly right. It's no need to panic. It's no need to rush to judgment on him because we think we've all been a bit overly harsh on Simon Mignolet as well, which I'm noticing is a bit of a trend when I'm reading comments on forums and Twitter.
We have been a bit harsh on Simon Mignolet.
Yeah, we have, but we need to forget about that because Simon did have 3 good years at this, and the king is dead. Long live the new king, and let's give him a proper crack. It's as simple as that.
You agree with that?
Not all of it, no. I think I agree there's no rush to judge, but I'm still panicking because I think we've added uncertainty into the team where there's plenty already, and I think it's all well and good saying, he needs time, but I don't... A goalkeeper in 4 months' time is no good to me at the moment if we've dropped too many points and we can't win the league, and that's where I am. And I think I've been very patient. I've waited a long time for the league title. It's the idea we need to be patient with goalkeepers. I've been very patient watching Liverpool for a long time.
But what's this
year I think we've got a really, really good chance of winning the league, and I'll be frustrated if we sacrifice that to get a good goalie in 6 months' time, because I think we've worked on Mignolet a lot. We've done a lot with him as a football club. As the guys said, he's improved his punch and he's improved his confidence. He's not there yet, and maybe they've decided, we need to go for another fella, but he was doing all right and we were winning games, and we're still winning games, but he did his bloody best to ensure that we didn't, and I'm worried about him. If I'm Jose Mourinho, I'm licking my lips at this idea of going to Anfield. I'm playing Fellaini. You say to Zlatan, just stand on him. He doesn't fancy it, and I'm just really, really concerned because I think we haven't got time to mess around with projects and to say, this guy, he's great with his feet, so we'll turn him into what a Premier League goalkeeper. Maybe it will happen, and if you can say to me, look, in a month we'll have him sound, then I can maybe get on board with it. If you're saying, he's going to have a bad year like De Gea, well, I can't be arsed with it. To be honest with you, I can't be arsed to in the hope that he ends up like De Gea. Look, play the fella we know what he's doing. You talk about the Mignolet comparisons. The way that the centre halves reacted to that chance at the end to the goalie. I mean, I've rarely seen someone have a go at Mignolet like that. I'm sure they were frustrated with him in the past, but they just literally couldn't believe he hadn't come for it. Like, it was almost like...
He must have shouted, because the body language was they couldn't believe.
And so we're adding this uncertainty. The only positive that I could think of is what Josh said before, is they've got 2 weeks to work with him now. He's not going to go away with Germany because he doesn't get in the squad, and so they've got 2 weeks. This goes back to goalkeeping coaches and things like that, which is a contentious thing at Liverpool as well, but he needs to get better very, very quickly, because the team can't have any passengers, and he was a passenger on the weekend. He did absolutely nothing to contribute to a Liverpool win.
Yeah, I think Klopp's created an issue that he didn't need to create, to be honest. I thought Mignolet's form was good enough to warrant him keeping his place, and I think now it's just muddied the waters, and I think he now has got a genuine dilemma ahead of that Man United game, because that's such a huge contest. And it was what Klopp said recently when we asked him about it was, he said, Karius will get these 3 games, obviously Derby, Hull, Swansea, and then I'll reassess it over the international break. Now, I didn't really buy that, to be honest. I think Karius is very much his man, and I think his thought was that'll be it. Now he'll prove his class, and away we go. That hasn't happened, and I think if he genuinely does look at performances so far this season and say, right, now I have to make my decision for Man United at home, then I think Mignolet has to start. But I don't think he will, because I think he probably will stick by Karius, but it is a worry because he was so static again at the weekend, and it just creates that panic and uncertainty that which to be fair, I thought that was one area of Mignolet's game which has improved hugely in the last 12 months. He has, even when he has made errors, it hasn't stopped him coming for things. And to see now with a goalkeeper who's rooted to his line, I think part of it probably also is the pressure of playing for Liverpool compared to playing for Mainz, because I've spoken to him a few times, Karius, and he's a supremely confident lad, and but I think he's looked very nervous so far, and that is a worry.
There was a little moment I thought. I think that even the thing at the end, I think it tells it's a little story, Josh. But I do think in general you can't underestimate coming into the Premier League from a different league. In terms of the fact that you get more protection just in your 6-yard box. That's straightforward. I don't think there's anything else that's that different. I'm sure people are putting swinging balls in Germany, but you do get more protection from referees in a 6-yard box in England, and in Germany abroad than you do in England. And I also felt that the other thing that's happened to him, and maybe it's not happening at Mainz, and I do think that there is an element of, let's try this fella out. Do you know what I mean? And that's suddenly what he's going to come up against now. And because he's actually arguably failed his first test, as John says, when if you start against United, let's try this fella out is going to be the essence of the Jose Mourinho team talk. Is let's try this fella out, everything in his 6-yard box, everything right on top of him, make it as hard for him as possible, swirl your crosses as close to him as possible. Let's really try him out. And first impressions do actually matter. And if you can't nail them, then you can end up with a problem for 3 or 4 months until you really do sort of put it all to bed.
Yeah, and I think with a goalkeeper, as we've seen with Mignolet so many times, confidence is a massive thing. I think you could argue that now Klopp's got the big decision to make, but I think he's already made it. I think when he decided that he was going to carry on with Karius for Hull, because I was expecting Mignolet to come back in for Hull after Derby, and then we sort of try Karius out in the cups and in the games that maybe we can argue matter less, where there's less pressure on him and he's going to be able to build up that confidence. But it seems like Klopp, the buck sort of falls with Klopp now, that he's thrown Karius in at the deep end and it's not worked, and now he's left himself with almost an even bigger mess to clear up, where he says, well, look, do I risk Karius in this game, risk Man United throwing Zlatan and Pogba and all these big lads?
They're a massive team, United.
Yeah, massive. And they'll know Mourinho's obviously a smart manager. He's been around the block. He'll pick out a weakness in what has been a pretty strong Liverpool side to this point. But yeah, so now he's got to make a decision. Do I risk Karius, or do I then risk ruining his confidence for the majority of the rest of the season?
There is a thing here where people say, for instance, even the and you can go either way on this, and I want to be absolutely clear about this. I'm about to name one current and one former Manchester United goalkeeper, Taibbi on the one hand and De Gea on the other, and you can say, let's be honest, Karius is almost certainly not going to be as bad as Taibbi, and he's almost certainly not going to become as good as De Gea, because De Gea is freakishly good as a goalkeeper. He's one of the best 3 in the world. He's an astonishingly good goalkeeper. But both were given time. One used the time to develop and one didn't, Rob. But there is a thing here where, you can't play that false dichotomy. You can't say, well, if you give him time, he'll become like De Gea, because he won't necessarily. But you can't say also he'll become like Taibbi. I think my point, though, is that what's frustrating is that it's the uncertainty part, and it feeds into this. What's going to happen. I don't want to give this free kick away here, because I've just watched United for 10 minutes bombard our goalkeeper, and now I don't want to make the smart foul because I just need to take the pressure off him. And do you know what I mean? And that's my worry, is that all of this begins to become a little bit of a domino effect somewhere for this Liverpool side.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I take John's point. You definitely don't want to wait, but I'm not down with the view that Mignolet was goalkeeping in a particularly competent way. I think he hadn't had any disasters yet this season, but a lot of the surrounding stuff was still there. I don't think what happens on Saturday is a disaster for a new keeper. Yes, it is worrying, that thing in the last minute, but we are micro-analysing here.
I think the one in the first half's worse, by the way, the Jack Cork one.
The one where... Which one's that?
It's all over the top.
He's ended up volleying it about 4 yards out.
Yeah, I think it's worse, that one.
Yeah,
and I think I don't know whether he just thinks it's going to run through to him and Jack Cork's not going to reach it. That's the only reason I can presume he doesn't come for it. But that's worse than the second one in terms of how long the ball was in the air for and where it ends up landing.
Let's put it this way. I think we don't have a choice but to say we give the lad his first away game. We give him that. It's not the end of the world. There's no. I don't really know what position what we can argue about here, because I think you bring Mignolet back in. What was the point of even thinking we needed a new keeper? Yes, United might target him, but Christ's sake, if their game is all about how they target our keeper in big balls up, then bring it on. We'll have that. We'll beat them on the deck, and if they want to behave like a small team who've got set pieces on us, come and be West Brom or a Pulis team against us, absolutely fine as far as I'm concerned. Look, I think he stunk the place out, the keeper, but it's his first away game. He's a young keeper. Let's see. Let's talk about him again in 5 games' time.
Moving to the right back, Nathaniel Klein. By the way, I agree with that. But moving to the right back, Nathaniel Klein he became the extra man. I was intrigued he got man of the match, actually, because I think he plays really, really well, and I think he's constantly involved, John, and I think he's carrying a threat. But it's noticeable, I think, the second half, especially Swansea, have sort of decided we're all right with him, haven't he? We're going to worry about everybody else. And don't get me wrong, he makes himself available. No one could work harder. And as I say, I think he has a good game. He has a very good game. But it's almost like, it's the old Benitez blanket metaphor. Swansea have decided the blanket's not going to stretch to Nathaniel Klein. That's why Nathaniel Klein's got the ball, and that's why he's got time.
Yeah, I think with Klein, it's interesting. He's been carrying an injury. They've kept that a little bit quiet, haven't they? And he's got a problem with his knee, is it, James? And so he's pulled out of the England squad. And I think that's quite interesting because we haven't quite seen him at his rampaging best this season. I think he's been good, don't get me wrong, but you saw him in that England game where they actually drew against Slovakia and how powerful he can be from an attacking finesse. And I just wonder with Klein whether we just play him a little bit too much, and there's the reluctance to give anyone else a go there, even in League Cup games. And you just wonder whether whether we just ask a little bit too much of him because he's such a steady Eddie and because he's reliable, and you kind of feel like we need to get forward. And maybe I was a bit kind of thought it was a bit of a shame when there might be a minor thing. It might just be to get him out of the England thing, a situation where he's probably not going to play anyway, and let him kind of be around Melwood, and I'm sure he'll be back for Manchester United. But I don't know. I think we need to be a little bit careful with him because he, we don't want to get him injured also as well. But you need to keep him a little bit fresher than kind of what we've seen him. And because
you wouldn't start him to Spurs in the League Cup, would you?
No. I hope we don't. But then I think he probably will.
Yeah, Klein's the sort of player that I look to as a barometer of performance, really. I've sort of found myself about 20 minutes into the Swansea game at the weekend looking to the sort of players like Klein and Henderson and going, well, where are you? Where is this performance going? Almost like what's going to be the final result of this? And I looked at Klein and he was receiving, hospital passes from Matip and Mane and having almost quite a lot to deal with down that flank because that was the seam where the majority of their press was coming from. But he sort of kept a cool head, and then when if you want to call it Swansea's period of dominance, probably more shaky spell came to an end on about half an hour. Klein was one of the players who sort of stepped up and sort of took the reins, if you will, and said, look, right, we're getting back into this game now, which is almost what impressed me the most about him, and perhaps what makes him man of the match because of the sort of period of time he's good
big
for
in the first half, isn't he? You're right to point that out, Josh. He has a big influence for the 10 minutes before the break.
Yeah, massive.
From a right back position. He's Rob. I hate this sort of, and I'm glad John's actually pushed on this idea that maybe we overplay the steady Eddie factor to a certain extent, because firstly that's a good performance. As I say, I think he had the most time on the pitch, but he still has a good performance. He still gets up and down. Josh is right to point out he's good before the break, very good before the break. It's a really good performance from him. At times you would like him to maybe find a way to be a little bit more considered with end product, but he's played very well, Nathaniel Klein there, and maybe we should treat him as a star asset a little bit more than a lad who's just going to make sure he always gives us a 7.
Yeah, I think what John's saying is right, and I think it was very true of last season when we were playing 2 games a week in the running, and he was rarely one of those rested, was he? Oh, mind you, Randall got the odd game, but still he was playing 2 games a week quite often. It's not quite the case this season. He's got a week between games, but you're right, you'd want to see him rested against Spurs. I'm struggling to see how people saw him as man of the match. It was very much that quintessential 7 out of 10 Klein performance that isn't a man of the match performance, that always is to be appreciated over the 90. Whether he gets the best average, considering so many of the lads were abject in the first half, I don't know, but not a man of the match. But again, well played, Nathaniel.
Well played, Nathaniel. Moving on to James Milner, there is. I feel as though the game turns when Liverpool second half, James, get Coutinho, Milner and Firmino absolutely in the game, the 3 of them throughout that, so almost up the left side of the pitch. It was interesting from a tactical point of view that he swaps Coutinho and Wijnaldum over. Wijnaldum plays more down the right, Coutinho comes and plays more off the left, but those 3 I think are integral in Liverpool's second half performance. And Milner obviously scores the penalty, but in general is excellent, runs the game from left back in that 15-minute spell.
Yeah, that was what made kind of the choice of Klein as man of the match a bit more bizarre, really, because on the other flank, Milner was he was so much more influential in the game, especially in that second half. I think you're right. That link up is really going to understanding between him and Coutinho. I thought defensively he was brilliant. He got forward at every opportunity. It was a bit bizarre how Swansea hadn't really done their homework on the fact that he's always going to cut back in onto his right foot. There was a couple of times where he shaped to go down the outside, and then they showed him the inside, and he said thanks very much. Won the ball, kept winning the ball back, and obviously he gets a lot of plaudits for the penalty, and rightly so. But there was a lot more to admire about his performance than that.
Josh, it's a very strong performance from him. The penalty's now got a surety to it. You said before, Mr. Reliable, but there's much more to the game than just the idea that he is reliable. I think that if anything, when he was playing in centre midfield, you could sort of depict his performances as being this is what he'll do. Now he just seems like a constant threat. The second half especially there, obviously, but he seems like a constant threat. I think James is a bit harsh there on the Swansea players, because one of the things he is willing to cross it with his left. You've got to worry about the fact that he might take it on his left. Yes, you should expect him to go with his right, but it's more that he can go either way. He can go from both angles. He's capable of doing everything really now.
Yeah, and I was really impressed with the amount of times I did both. We've got Paul Senior trademark with how many times he sort of sent people for the echo, if you will, going on to his right and then cutting back onto his left and then getting the cross in with the left. I think at left back he's just shown that how much more there actually is to his game, and now there's almost, I don't know if we're being over-exaggerating, Liverpool fans sort of saying who is better as a left-back in the league than what James Milner's shown us so far, and the fact that he can take penalties so convincingly in that moment. I almost felt like after it I shouldn't have been as worried about the penalty as I was, but obviously in that situation you're very right to worry about it.
Moving towards the centre halves, John, Lovren and Matip, it's you maybe want a little bit more from them first half if you to really get stuck into them a little bit. I think that James actually said before that Matip's composure for the first time drops off a little bit.
Yeah,
and they are struggling with the movement of the Swansea players.
Yeah, I don't know. They just didn't seem to have quite enough about them all game. I know Lovren ended up injured, but Klopp said he got injured right at the end, so it wasn't something that was hampering him. I don't know. They just didn't seem to be getting up off the air quite as much as you'd like them to. I don't know, just not quite enough kind of snap in the game really. And yeah, a little bit times on the ball where they got a little bit hurried and they weren't the best. I don't know. I think they're still growing as a partnership and maybe kind of growing into the season. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, people might say I've been being a bit forgiving when I've been kind of so harsh on Karius, but I think Lovren's shown us enough in his kind of Liverpool career really to maybe just put it down as a day when they're not great. I think I'm a bit more concerned about them as a partnership than I kind of was individually, because I think
there's things that if they're working well as a partnership that they just deal with.
Yeah, they can deal with each other out. And you talk about the chance at the end, and we've highlighted Karius' role in it, that he probably should come. I don't think the centre halves are positioned quite as. And I'll be interested to see what Sean Rodgers makes of them in the Tuesday review, because I didn't think they were positioned brilliantly. Maybe they think they're going to get a shout, but they just look generally too far over to me. And Matip kind of ends up with two to deal with, which isn't necessarily his fault, but. They just don't seem kind of ideally positioned to me to deal with that cross at the end, regardless of kind of what the goalkeeper should be doing. And yeah, a little bit more work to do. But we talk about Karius not going away now. It's none of the back five are. If you're saying Karius is going to start, then it's Klein's around, and he's going to be getting bits of treatment, but he's still going to be there. Milner obviously doesn't go anymore. Then the two centre halves aren't involved apparently. So there's time to do a little bit on the training round, maybe getting them playing against the under 23s. Get Danny Ings running at them and pulling them around, and just kind of see what can be done about getting them kind of working together a bit more. Maybe it doesn't help Lovren. We've moved him around a bit. We've been sending him left and right and things like that in terms of the two. So maybe that's not ideal for him. Really, he's back on the left now, but it's something that needs to grow quite quickly. I think
James will maybe a bit harsh here in the sense I actually agree with a lot of what John said, but their centre forward does a fair bit of what Firmino does. Nowhere near at the same level, but one of the reasons why, for instance, we've all liked watching Firmino up front is that centre halves don't know where he is, and I thought that from Borgia. I thought he actually had he did a lot of doing elusive movements, coming 15 yards deeper than you, giving you the decision to make, and then running back at you at pace when there's a ball. You get the impression these days centre halves are almost quite happy to have a battle to deal with, and then when they haven't got one, they can look a little bit like we don't know quite what we're meant to be trying to achieve here.
I'd go along with that. I think because I think Matip looked sensational, didn't he, down at Chelsea when he loved that battle with Costa, and it was more of a physical duel than I think you're right with Swansea did put them both under pressure first half, and neither of them, I didn't think Lovren or Matip had a particularly great afternoon. I think with Lovren, part of the problem as well is he's been in and out, hasn't he? Like he doesn't, obviously he missed Leicester with the head injury he suffered in training, then he had the virus last week, so he hasn't really played that much football back to back. And although they are clearly Klopp's first choice combination, well, I think they probably played 4 games together, so it is still very much a work in progress.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, that actually. It's a hard game to judge them on because I don't think they would have got the normal compact team protection in that first half where we looked ragged. There were Swansea lads breaking onto us, and you were thinking, where's the midfield at this point? They'd broken the line of a non-existent press. So it's not a good day to judge centre-halves. They aren't culpable of any particular individual errors. I don't think, anyway. As you say, John, if you look back forensically, maybe on the final chance, maybe there is a positioning issue. It's one to give them 6 out of 10s and move on from, I think.
Henderson. Josh first on Henderson. I think that it's... Firstly, the assist for the goal is excellent. I could talk about the goal till the cows come home. I should probably save this for the Firmino part, but it's the way in which when the ball bounces back off, it's the way in which when you see it on the replay, he has a look left and right. He knows exactly where he is. He knows that he's onside. He knows that he's going to be unmarked. But it's also that he knows it's bouncing back to either Coutinho or Henderson. So when everyone else is looking at the ball, he's thinking, my teammate's going to do the right thing. And I think that that's something where I think in the second half there, I thought Henderson had a sureness about him, that all of his teammates knew that Jordan Henderson, broadly speaking, was going to do the right thing and going to keep doing it without him ever really sort of, say, putting in the performance he puts in against Chelsea.
Yeah, and that goal was just instinct in several senses. Instinct from Henderson to get the ball back into the right area, off deflecting back off the wall, and it was instinct from Firmino. I think Henderson put in your sort of stereotypical, if you will, captain's performance in that second half, just the way that he sort of came up and he stood up and was counted for some of the mistakes in the first half, and he would have been as frustrated as anyone at half time, especially when Klopp would have probably had a few choice words for all the players. But I think it was important for him, of all people on the pitch really, to come back out in the second half and sort of grab the game by the scruff of the neck and, like you say, have that sort of sureness in the game.
It's a funny midfield to hold together. It must be a funny midfield, John, to play in the middle of the three off. Certainly when it becomes even more, it goes from Lallana to Coutinho, if you know what I mean. That's, but Coutinho won his battle, scrapped right the way through. We'll come on to talk about him in a minute. But there was people running off, I felt, first half too easily, and I think that this is one of those where you can allot responsibility all over the place, but certainly if no one's grabbing and talking, you can perhaps allot a bit of responsibility to the midfield leader and captain in there to say, you've got to come with your runners here, lads. Even if they're not running off Henderson, someone's got to say, lads, can we just be a bit more compact and get through this? And it felt like he was battling with that a little bit, battling with his own performance, but then second half I thought he played really well.
Yeah, he's got a lot to think about, hasn't he? And potentially a lot of space that he needs to be covering as well. If you've got two centre midfielders in front of you who very much want to press and very much been told to press, if they're getting out, and that's kind of leaving a lot of midfield for him really, and potentially quite a lot of runners. I don't think he's got his positional sense right quite yet. I think, again, to go back to that chance right at the end, if there's too many men in the box, then where's he holding midfielder? He's actually probably far too advanced.
Well, to be fair, at that point he's brought Chan on.
Yeah, but Chan's going out to press the man who's trying to cross it. Maybe Chan could get out a little bit quicker, but Chan's right out there to try and press the man who's putting the ball in. And I think if you got Lucas Leiva there, he knows where he needs to be. He's on the edge of the box maybe to try and get a header away, or he's there to kind of go in. If you look where Henderson is, then he's quite far outside the box really. But then does the ball goes in the box very quickly? Does he know that that's necessarily going to happen? Is he trying to read too many things? Is kind of what I'm kind of driving at here really, is that he's got a lot to do in this football team, Jordan Henderson, and considering it's quite a new position for him, I think he's doing really well.
It's the second half performances becomes the key, which I think is a thing worth remembering, that we can emphasise the fact that Liverpool were a bit ropey at times first half, but they give themselves a chance to save the game, and they pull themselves through a little bit, and I think that will come on to sort of spread the conversation, spread the love. Henderson, Wijnaldum and Coutinho, the three of them define the ability to do that through the back end of that first half and into the second. Yeah,
they do. I think Henderson's particularly important, as John's saying. He gets Liverpool up the pitch actually, because he is the deepest, but I think he pulls us in. He's very often still positioned between the two centre halves, but they're a lot higher in the second half. But the combination between the three of them worked really, really well. First time we've seen it broken really, without Lallana in it for the majority and Coutinho in there. They really see it. They've really looked a little triangle of different talents, like a mini X-Men or Fantastic Three or something, in what they were doing. Henderson was the general. He was very, very quick in his press and winning the ball back. And the pass for the goal is now becoming quietly a little trademark of Jordan Henderson's. That very quick cushion stun pass in a different sort of way. It's not dissimilar to the Leicester goal he makes for Sturridge and Mane. But Wijnaldum was a willing runner at all times, and Coutinho the prompter. It really felt like a little triumvirate of talents.
The three really did function, didn't it, James? It's worth pointing that out. It's worth emphasising that.
Yeah, it did. And I particularly like Coutinho in that role. I think Rob touched on it earlier. It was almost like at the tip of the diamond, wasn't it, where he played in 2013-14, and he was huge in that second half for Liverpool, which he probably epitomised the transformation over 90 minutes more than anyone, because he was way off the mark first 30-35 minutes, but he's able to get into space and really hurt teams. And I thought he pulled the strings for Liverpool's second half.
He really does pull the strings, Coutinho. It's worth emphasising and sort of spending some time on him, that I think he wins it back about 10 times, Rob. He's carried it up the pitch. He's carried it 40 yards. I felt as though he felt as though he had a wider range of options. That's what I'm looking at there when he's carrying the ball at that point. His distribution was terrific second half. It is, for me, it's a funny thing that the old man of the match line, and that you can pick the player who maybe plays the best across the match, or you can pick the man who does the thing that defines the way the football match goes. And I think that in this instance, this is strongly, for me, it's probably Coutinho's first man of the match performance for me, to be honest with you, this season. I walked away from that going, I think he's a footballer who needs to be involved as much as possible. I think that's the other thing as well. He wants to be involved in the football match, and if he doesn't, he'll go looking for it. He wants the responsibility, but not necessarily the responsibility to have to bend it in the top corner.
Yeah, and I've said in recent shows, I think Coutinho also needs to play himself into a season in a certain way. I think he brings people into that game all over the show. Firmino doesn't have a great first half, but he brings Firmino into that game. I know Firmino's very, very willing to be brought into games and does his own work as well. But also, I think the contribution of Milner in the second half is in no short regard due to Coutinho's intervention. No, it's a really, really good Coutinho performance.
And Wijnaldum on the other side, John, doing slightly similar stuff, though, without the sheer verve and cheek of Coutinho in terms of, Wijnaldum's getting on with the job over there. Coutinho's making it look like it's the most fun he's had in years.
Yeah, I mean, he's never going to be as eye-catching as Coutinho is. It's just kind of not going to happen for him, but we were talking before about he's one that always seems to play better on a second look, and you think, bloody hell, he's involved in a lot of the stuff we've done here. It's his layoff for the Coutinho one that we think's in all day and just goes wide. It's not just a really good layoff, which it is. You've got to talk about where he is on the football pitch. Is one of the furthest men forward. In fact, he might even be the furthest man forward at that point, which, from where he's playing and in that part of the game's, quite an interesting thing in itself, really, and showing, the confidence that he's got, in his teammates and also in his own ability that, he wants to get involved. He wants to be helping Liverpool win this game of football, and that's good to see, because it still is quite. He's still quite young in terms of his Liverpool career. He hasn't been here too long, and he's been asked to play a slightly different position, as a few of them are, really. And so to see him growing in confidence all the time and to see him want to be someone who's helping win games of football for Liverpool. The easiest thing I think for Wijnaldum to do at the moment would be to just be neat and tidy, and we've called him neat and tidy, and I don't want it to seem that as a kind of negative thing, because I think the easiest thing for him to be, I'll just be a central midfielder, I'll get it, I'll give it, I'll close, but he's actually looking to do more than that already, and I think that's a real positive.
The thing about what we're saying here is that one of the things that happens in the second half, and I think that we've named the four players who are primarily responsible in Henderson, Wijnaldum, Coutinho and Firmino here, Josh, sort of shifted between this being a group discussion in a sense, is that they decide that they're just better than Swansea, and they make it clear to Swansea they're just better than them. That there's no, by 52 minutes, 55 minutes, if you're Swansea, you're thinking, how are we meant to cope with this? How much more of this? There's still conceivably another 40 minutes of this, because these lads are that much better. And I think that shows a real. Firstly, it obviously shows the role looking at half time, but it also shows the right type of football and arrogance. They don't just go out and work harder, they go out to almost prove a point, in terms of they're all beating the man in one-on-one confrontations, whether it's in tackles, they're turning away, they're pulling people around. It suddenly Liverpool go from being alright, interested in the game of football, to utterly dominant, and it's those four players who are responsible for it.
Yeah, and that's what you'd think they're there to do. I almost don't want to overpraise any of them, because that would be, in that situation, what I'd expect them to do. When we're 1-0 down to a team like Swansea, I'll be looking at them, sort of 4, maybe 5 players to go and grab the game by the scruff of the neck and go and really take it to Swansea.
Responsibility is interesting in this one, James. Because for instance, I think that it's strange how at the minute you feel as though these Liverpool players pass the baton of responsibility around amongst themselves. So, for instance, after the break that happens, when Liverpool get 2-1 up, then Sturridge actually really comes to the fore in the game. His movement's great. A couple of times he just does sensible things to take a bit of time out of the game and, showed real game intelligence. I felt Sturridge last sort of 15 minutes. All the way through, his movement's good, but you almost feel like Sturridge and Mane in this game, they were almost playing a game over here for a period of time to put pressure on Swansea. The four I've just mentioned, Henderson, Wijnaldum, Coutinho, Firmino, maybe with a bit of Milner in there, they're doing stuff over here. It's interesting how quickly, and that's one of the reasons I think the manager changed it at half time, where he puts Coutinho, how much there's partnership, stroke triangle, stroke even squares for one. It's become a thing for this Liverpool team, hasn't it? You can see how they're all interlinking with each other.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think there isn't like one go-to man, is there, in this Liverpool team? It's not like it seems like for so many years it was always, they'd look to Steven Gerrard or look to Suarez or look to Fernando Torres and say, go on, you lift us, you make it happen, and then you show us the way and we'll follow. But I think different people, different weeks are putting their hands up and
even different bits of the game.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned Mane there, and I actually gave Mane man of the match, which I don't think I've seen anyone else give man of the match. So I obviously didn't watch it very closely.
No, you know what? I watched it back. That's not a bad shout there.
I just thought over the 90 minutes he was probably there was most. I thought first half he was Liverpool's best player when there was just mediocrity all around him. And then I thought second half, his contribution wasn't as eye-catching as maybe Coutinho or Firmino, but I thought he was very clever in possession and took it to Swansea as much as anyone.
This is the definition of why you think you've got a functioning team, and I think this is why when, for instance, John before is annoyed at you, rightly, Rob, just in general, but also over the goalkeeper question is because you're looking at a functioning team, and there's lads can have good 20 minutes and then but not feel as though I've got to keep playing at this pitch, because if I can't keep being involved in the game, it's all going to drop off all around the pitch. I think I thought Sturridge's performance was ridiculously willing and selfless.
Yeah, it's really good.
He's just constantly creating space, little touches, not making it all about him in any way. It's not a classic number 9 performance. It's just unshowy. Mane's rightly gets a mention there. All of these footballers, and why that second half is so encouraging, is they all also find a way to turn it on, all find a way to help Liverpool win a game of football.
Yeah, on another day this season, and I think it'll come, either Wijnaldum or Sturridge come away with hat-tricks from a game like that. Sturridge's movement was brilliant, as was Wijnaldum's. Wijnaldum's makes run after run, where the ball didn't arrive because Liverpool chose other options, but he pulled people. Sturridge, you look back on it, and Sturridge is within a hair's breadth of several goals. His movement was brilliant. You know what, James is. I'm not going to disagree with James on Mane's man of the match. Having done my forensic watch back of that second half, because his every touch is sublime. He's making himself available is fantastic. Swansea is so focused on him, so he's not given the room to ever open his stride and to do something that's going to be a highlight on Match of the Day during the course of that game. But everything he does is technically perfect, and he's always available. It's quietly one of his best performances.
Closing it down then. Manchester City have been beaten. Finally, they've been beaten. Liverpool now find themselves after this international break only 2 points behind Manchester City. And James, it's John's, rightly saying before, the ambition should have no ceiling on it this season. Now,
yeah.
There's Liverpool have got nothing to be afraid of. They've had every single challenge. They've just gone a patch of 5 games. I know one of them's a League Cup game, but gone a patch of 5 games. Come off the other side with 5 wins. It's hard, this isn't a case of try and keep your feet on the ground, lads. Feet can be on the ground and heads can simultaneously be in the sky. We've all watched everyone play at times this season. Liverpool have been as good as anybody else. There's absolutely nothing to be afraid of. This is a side that can win the league. Yeah,
I don't disagree with that. I think questions every kind of week so far, different questions have been asked and they keep coming up with the answers. So I think that fuels the optimism, doesn't it? Again, before Hull, it was all about this is exactly the kind of game that Liverpool will struggle in, demolish them, 1-0 down, completely abject first half, and then come back and win, find a way. And then I think you add to that the fact that over the last week, I think this idea that Man City is some invincible force that can't be stopped this season has been blown out the water as well. With they've looked vulnerable. So
shipped 5 goals.
Yeah, and I think
6 in 2 games.
Also, I think Tottenham, who I don't think they were paid enough probably respect back in the summer when people in general were talking about who was likely to be in the mix. I think they've shown that they're going to be right up there, and that almost when you think that Liverpool came away from White Hart Lane desperately disappointed only to get a point. I think that puts that into a bit of context as well.
And blew Arsenal away, who are also going to look like they're going to be there or thereabouts, John, as well. You wouldn't write United out. I think what you can take from this batch of 5 games, write United off, what you can take from this batch of 5 games and where the season is now is that it's going to be another open season. The one thing you would say is, unlike last season where you feel as though it can be one with a low points total, it might be one with quite a high points total, with a lot of sides sort of breaking 75 points.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a lot of draws for those top teams. You look at Man City and they've got beat. I think they'll get beat a few times this season. It won't be surprised me if they finish the season with 2 draws or something like that. So it's just how many of these games they kind of end up losing, really. And I think Liverpool might end up in a similar sort of position. I think we should be thrilled. I remember someone, and I wish I could find this, one of the Liverpool accounts did a tweet in the summer saying, how many points do you think we'll get from our first 5-6 games? And the predictions from Liverpool fans were very low because of the start it was, and the fact that there's so many games we were away. And I think that's sort of been forgotten a little bit. I think,
well, we played 31 more games and 17 of them are at home.
Yeah, and I think people are saying, oh, Liverpool have had a really tough start, but I don't think people are saying enough that it's 2 home games and 5 away games. And you can say that, the lines are being a bit blurred now between, whether you want to be home and away. I think generally speaking, the way teams play on counter-attack and things like that is maybe some teams are suited to be playing away a little bit more, but our 2 home games, we scored 4 and 5 and battered the opposition, and so we look like we're going to be pretty handy at home to me, and we've got, you know what I mean, and we've got 17 more of them, and so I think there is certainly reasons to be optimistic. Yeah, we're 4th in the table and other teams are playing well as well, and James is quite right to point out that not enough people are giving Spurs credit, although maybe they will now. Even before Man City game, it was their best start in 50 years, and then now they've just beaten Man City, so they're obviously going to be a good team. They're obviously, they've got a bit more kind of solidity than others have. The manager's been probably there the longest of the top teams, bar obviously Arsene Wenger, who's been there forever, and so it's going to be tough. And I think you just try and forget about draws being an option, and I think you've just got to try and win as many games as you can, and that might mean 1 or 2 losses more than what you normally get, but I think it's 3 points for the win, and that's your aim every game.
Forgetting about draws, Josh.
Yeah, definitely. I think that Swansea game at the weekend and the Tottenham game where we did draw, it shows that that's not what we want at all. We want to win, and if we don't win, then I'm happy to lose. Trying in a sense, I don't really want to settle for draws during this time.
I don't know about settling for. I'll take the odd draw, but I want us to win the league, and I've been doing the maths for the last few weeks, and John's absolutely spot on. None of the punditry world is looking at this 5-2 away to home ratio. Liverpool are, if you do a weighted analysis of this, as you should do to look at the progress of teams at an early point in the season, Liverpool are the pace setters in this league. Let's be right here. We're up and running here. 2 points behind City, but having played 5 away from home, we're top of this league and flying.
Top of this league and flying. Forget draws, they're absolutely pointless. Liverpool go to Swansea City. Well, they aren't pointless. You literally get 1 point. Sorry. Liverpool go to
Phil Blunder will live it all over that.
Oh god, the pedants would have gone wild. Liverpool go to Swansea City, and Liverpool were terrible for 45 minutes against Swansea, broadly speaking. Come out second half, put a terrific performance in, led from centre midfield by Philip Coutinho. The Reds are ridiculously excited because there is a hill. Liverpool are climbing it. We're going to get there one way or another. It's a fantastic season. Book no holidays in March, in April or in May. We've got an interest in the business end of this, trust me.